Good afternoon. So the topic of today is Jesus Lucifer? And this is a question that someone had, or actually somebody posted this on a forum that I was debating on, how Jesus is Lucifer, by which they mean the deceiver, the prince of darkness, the evil one. They think that Jesus came to deceive everybody, and that was his idea. So clearly, if you read the story of the Gospels, Jesus clearly isn't Lucifer in the story. He's not Satan in the story, actually, to be more specific, but he is Lucifer, the light bearer in the story. And the light is the God of the Israelites. And I'm going to explain to you how this became a confusion with people thinking that Lucifer meant something evil. And this comes from a misinterpretation and a misunderstanding of a passage in Isaiah 14. So I'll read you part of it, but not all of it. And it says here, Isaiah 14, "You shall recite this song of scorn over the king of Babylon." So it's a song. This comes from a song in Isaiah, which you're supposed to recite over the king of Babylon, who they hated. And it goes on to say how your pomp is brought down to Sheol. So he had this great display, which they call pomp, is like, splendid display, and it's all been brought down to the grave. And he says, "And the strains of your lutes," so lutes are like some kind of stringed instruments, and it was all pretty sounds, and it's all been destroyed, right? He says, worms are to be your bed, maggots are your blanket. So you're gonna be rotting in a hole covered with maggots and worms. Okay? So then the next passage, it says, how are you fallen from heaven, O shining one, son of dawn? How are you felled to the earth, O vanquisher of nations?" So here was a man, an emperor, who vanquished entire nations. He was just soaring like a star in the sky, right, at his peak. And now he's going down. He's been brought down to the earth. He's gonna go down into the grave. He's gonna be covered in maggots. So now, in the Latin, it's translated as "O Lucifer," because here it says, "O shining one, son of dawn, how are you felled to the earth, O vanquisher of nations?" This is a reference to two things. It's a reference to the king of Babylon, who this is a song of scorn directed at, and it's also a reference to a celestial object, maybe Venus or some other beautiful star in the sky, right? Probably Venus. "O shining one." Now, in Latin, it says, "O Lucifer." It says, "O Lucifer, how are you felled to earth, O vanquisher of nations?" So this weird idea came about that Lucifer fell down to the earth and became a destroyer of nations. This is not the case. This is a misunderstanding, a mistranslation of Isaiah 14. Somebody didn't know what they were referring to. They thought Lucifer meant the devil, that like some evil being came down and decided to wage some kind of spiritual war against the people. This is not what the Bible says. This is not what Isaiah says. It's referring to, it's giving metaphors for this king of Babylon, who was like a star in the sky. Now he's like going to be in a grave covered in worms, right? Because he was a vanquisher of nations. Now he's going to be vanquished. It's a song of scorn of the king of Babylon, who they hated. It has nothing to do with the devil. Okay, so once you understand that, then it's like, well, then what does Lucifer even mean? It means the light bearer. It means the light bearer. So what does Jesus say? He says, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life." Jesus is the light of life. Jesus is the light of the world. Jesus says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Jesus says, we got Psalms. There's a good one from Psalms. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my light and my salvation." The Lord is the light. The Lord is the light. Now, here's the thing. If you listen to a lot of people who are involved in Christianity or Christians, and they're genuine Christians, they think that Lucifer means something evil, right? And the reason is because they just were told that there was some passage in the Bible that they've never read because it doesn't exist about Lucifer coming to the earth and bringing some angels. Maybe there's something in the book of Enoch about that. I don't know, but it's not in the Bible I have here, and it's not in the King James version. It's just that it was a mistranslation of Isaiah. So a lot of people now, it's both the Christians and the Satanists together think that Jesus. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Christians and the Satanists together think that Lucifer means the evil one, the dark one. They make TV shows about Lucifer. Where Lucifer, he's definitely not Jesus. He's a, who knows? I don't want to go into his behavior, but he's supposed to be like this cool figure on TV or something. And in Hollywood, right? They're all Luciferians. They think, oh, we're Luciferians. We're not following Jesus. We're following Lucifer. But here's the thing. The actual meaning of Lucifer is light bearer. So if you're not following the light of God, you're not really following the actual light. You're following actually darkness. And if you look at what comes out of Hollywood, it's darkness. If you look at what a lot of these cults that call themselves the Illuminati are, they're not really illuminating anything. They're not bringing the light into the world. They're actually bringing darkness into the world. And you could say, well, that's what Lucifer really means. It's the false light and rather than the true light. And it's like, it doesn't really mean any of that. It's just a misunderstood word. It's a word that's being used incorrectly. Lucifer means light bearer. So if you're really bearing light, right, that would be Lucifer, means to bear light, to shine, right? Well, that's Jesus. That's a follower of Jesus. That's a follower of the light of the God of Israel that's in the Bible. Because I just read you the passage. I'll read it to you again. It says right here, the Lord is my light and my salvation. That's from Psalms. I can't read which, Psalm something. So that's from Psalms. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Jesus says, what John says something, I don't have the passage in front of me, but doesn't it say, and the light shineth, there came a light in the world, and it shineth in the darkness, and the darkness understood it not. The darkness understood it not. What's that one? Understood it not. The light, okay, so yeah, this says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has, that's not a very good one. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. No, I don't like that. I like the King James one better. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. I don't know. I like the wording. I thought I had the King James version, which I like better. Anyway, that's the whole point. The light shines in the darkness, right? Jesus says, what does he say, Matthew? I think it's something about, let your light, a city on a hill cannot be hid. Nor do men light a candle and cover it with a bushel. But it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father which is in heaven. It's really a cult of the light, Christianity, and the religion of the Israelites. It's a cult of the light. It's a cult of the light, and the light really the light basically is a symbol for truth, virtue, righteousness, goodness, doing what is right. That's the whole religion. When people get into this, Jesus was nailed to a cross and blood all over the place, and he was tortured, and I'm saved by the blood. They're going down into this thing of, they're going into paganism, because there's still paganism in the Bible, and it's like the story's rooted in paganism. But that's not what the God. You don't need blood and sacrifice and all this kind of stuff, and that's all just a lot of symbology. But the true light is something that you can experience all the time. It's not even like a secret thing. It's like when you see someone doing evil, they're in darkness, right? They're not shining brightly. They're like It's like it's a darkness around them. It's not a physical darkness. It's a spiritual darkness, because there is no dark and light. These are metaphors. These are metaphors. So you have the darkness and you have the light. Okay, these are metaphors. So there's spiritual darkness and there's spiritual light. If you don't know what that is, you should find out, because it's not something secret. You'll see it around you. You'll see people that are spiritually dark, and you'll see people that are spiritually light. And don't be confused by people that just act spiritually light, but are really doing the works of darkness. Okay? How do you know a tree? By its fruits, by its works. Just because a person looks good and sounds good and seems good, a lot of times they're not. A lot of times that's an act, which we call hypocrisy, which comes from the word actor. So the true light, you'll know by their works, right? And that's all in the Gospels, and I'm not reading verbatim from the passages because I don't have it all in front of me, but I've read it enough times to know what it's about. So here's the gist of the story. I'm going to tell you, here's the things that this guy wrote. He wrote that Lucifer and Jesus are one, and he talks about, in Revelations, it says Jesus is the morning star, which is also referred to here as in Isaiah, son of the dawn. Same thing. Jesus is the morning star. Isaiah says, oh, he wrote it here. Isaiah 14. Isaiah, Lucifer is the son of the morning star. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the bright morning star? How art thou cast down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? But see, once again, here's a person that doesn't realize that this is part, in the context of this song, has nothing to do with Lucifer. It's not a story about the devil. It's a song which is being sung of scorn to the king of Babylon, who has either died or has fallen from his position of power. I don't know the whole story. And they're just ridiculing him by saying that he used to be high in the sky and now he's going to be covered in maggots. But see, the person who's arguing that that Lucifer is an evil being, they don't know what any of this means. Then he says in Ephesians 4:9-10, Lucifer was cast. Okay, well, that's nothing. I went and looked at this passage in Ephesians. It has nothing to do with Lucifer at all. It has nothing to do with anything. So these people are pretty confused. But so here's a guy. He thinks that Lucifer means Satan, the serpent, the dragon, and that's different than Jehovah and Yahweh and oh wait, no, he thinks that Jehovah and Yahweh. Okay, so he thinks those are all Lucifer. Okay, all right. So he just thinks he's equating. I don't know what he's doing, but a lot of people do this. Now it's not just people that like Christianity that equate Lucifer with Satan. People that hate Christianity and think that they're following the devil call themselves Luciferians. They're really not, because there's no light emanating from them. There's no spiritual light. It's spiritual darkness. If you're committing crimes, if you're being a degenerate, if you're being corrupt, if you're being some kind of a, I watched this show, not a show, I watched a clip of the actual footage of like a murder scene, and it had to do with stuff that was going on back in the 1980s with coke dealers and porn stars and people that were in a gang that they lived on in this house in Laurel Canyon, and they got their heads beaten in with metal pipes and hammers for robbing some coke dealer's house, right? And there was like everybody in the story was like some kind of deviant, right? And they ended up with their heads bashed in, and the guy who did it was running cocaine, and he didn't even get in trouble. Like he didn't go to prison. Like literally he had people go to some house in Hollywood, bash people's brains in, and then everybody know who he was, the one that like sent them over. He even admitted he sent them there, but not to bash their brains in. And nothing happened. Well, it's like you think about, these people are. This is what you would call Luciferianism, right? Oh, we're not Christians. We follow Lucifer, but they don't really. This is all darkness. This is spiritual darkness. And so those people are in spiritual darkness. So the people that think, oh, we're Luciferians because we don't follow Jesus and we're into Satanism, you're actually not Luciferians per the word, which means light bearer. Because if you're Luciferian, if you were bearing light, you would do good. You would shun evil. You would walk away from evil. You would walk on the path of righteousness, like it says to do in the Bible. Like you would do all the things the Bible says to do, as far as your behavior and how you interact with other human beings, and how your whole lifestyle would be completely different if you were actually bearing light. So I don't want to go too much into that story. Although I will say this, though. One thing about that story is the guy who was selling the drugs, major coke dealer in Hollywood, never did the FBI ask him where he was getting the drugs. Isn't that interesting? Never did the CIA get involved and try to find out where, because you got to understand, if you're dealing that much cocaine, it's interstate and it's international, and no one from the federal government managed to head over to his house and knock on his door and ask him about where he's getting his stuff. No one was interested. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that goes on in Hollywood, and so these Hollywood people think they're Luciferians, but they're really not bearing any light. They're living in darkness. So that's the moral of the story. Is Jesus Lucifer? He is, per the actual original definition of the word, because the God of Israel is the light bearer. And Jesus is the story of Jesus as the light bearer. So Jesus is the light bearer, Yahuwah is the light bearer, and the God of Israel is the light bearer. That's what the whole story is about, or it became about. I don't know that it was what it was originally. So, like I've said, it evolved over time. But by the time we're picking it up in Christianity and Isaiah and Psalms and Proverbs and other places, it's about the light of God. And also when you look at Joshua, Israel and the 12, Jacob and the 12. That's why we have these astrotheological themes, because we have the spiritual light, which is represented as physical light, and we get the physical light from the sun, and of course there's 12 months, and the rest is history. So have a nice day.